Oh goodness, there's 3 of you guys watching. Hello. So I'm trying to find my list of mermaid prompts, but there's like a gazillion different ones, and the one I had saved in Instagram isn't there. Hey Caesar. So you guys, my thought is that I'm here to answer questions. So if you have something specific you want me to like demonstrate for assignments, I can do that. Or I was just gonna draw, just to kind of be using the space here. And it's May, and so there's this thing on Instagram about drawing mermaids in May, because, you know, play on words. So I thought that would be a good place to start. So you certainly don't have to draw mermaids with me. You could work on your assignments. You could, you know, ask questions. You could draw whatever you want to draw. So that's the plan. So I think, let's see here. I think I just need to pick one of these. It's interesting, there's a ton of different mermaid lists, and I thought I had the main one, and I'm not seeing it now, so I'm going to pick a different one. And now I've lost it. Fun. Okay. I'm going to do the Jane Davenport mermaid. So she's an artist that I've taken a couple of workshops from her, and she's got a product line that she sells at Michael's, and she's got a couple of books out. So I think what I'm going to actually do is a little bit of thumbnailing. So I'm going to put some of the prompts down. I don't know if I'll put all of them. Maybe I'll put the first 15 days and just kind of brainstorm ideas, because that's really kind of a key part of art making, is coming up with ideas. We don't all start off with like these brilliant drawings that are perfect the first time round. Sometimes it helps to think about it a little bit, think about composition, think about kind of the mediums we want to use. So that's a little bit of what I think I'll probably do today. So I'm going to just start, I'm going to stop talking for a second and go ahead and start putting those prompts down, and then we'll kind of go from there. So these will just be the first 15. Actually, I'm going to use a slightly thicker pen so you can see it a little bit better. And actually, the very first class that I took online was actually a mermaid class. I lied, I said I wasn't going to talk, and then I started talking. Oh well. Okay. And it was actually co-taught with Jane Davenport, and then the other artist is actually a local artist. She lives up north of Seattle, named Tisha Moore, who is an art journaling guru. She kind of made art journaling a thing in the Pacific Northwest and outside of other places. And she and Jane kind of co-taught this online class, so we watched videos and then we kind of applied it and had a Facebook group, and that was kind of, you know, I did it when my kids are pretty early on and you know, existing. They were pretty young, and it was a good way for me to kind of do art when I was at that time not actually teaching art, I was teaching English. So I have a little soft spot in my heart for them. So by all means, guys, let me know if you have questions. So apparently my son is on here, and he's asking me which child is my favorite. And so I'm going to give him the pat response that I always tell my kids when they ask this question, that he is my favorite son. And by the way, Ben, you're not a what, you're a who. So I'm kind of watching this as I'm doing this just so I can read the chat. Does that look blurry to you? Because on my device it does, but it might be because I'm down in the basement. Don't care. Quality's fine. Good. Thanks, Ben. So no, nobody has any questions for me besides my own child. No blur. Good. And remember, if you are on here, if you're one of my students and you're on here for your attendance for the week, you do need to do like Caesar there and let me know that you are here so that I can give you credit for that. I think I'm going to just put the first 10 prompts here, and that way I can kind of get drawing, and also I'm running out of space, so. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, so part of my brainstorming process when I'm kind of doing something not just kind of spur of the moment or intuitive, is sometimes I'll write words, sometimes I'll write little pictures if I'm kind of, thinking about it. These prompts are kind of fun because a lot of these kind of Instagram challenges usually are just one word, and she's done this whole kind of play on words thing, which I think in some ways can be interesting. And a little bit more engaging. So ladies in waiting, it could be like a princess kind of thing, or maybe even, I don't know, like maybe a Queen Elizabeth thing, like a Queen Elizabeth mermaid. And actually, let's see here. I'm switching up my materials again. So Queen Elizabeth, or just some sort of princess. This idea of waiting, so maybe it's more like a stream rather than the ocean or river. So maybe they're more kind of stream creatures. Diving bells. So we could do like bells like Disney Belle, from Beauty and the Beast, or we could do something else like maybe Bells of the Ball, or maybe bell-shaped. Ooh, this might be a good one to do jellyfish with. So I think what I'll do is I'm gonna, on this right-hand side, I'm gonna just kind of put words that I'm associating with it, and then maybe I'll do some doodling on the other side, kind of flesh some of these ideas out. So obviously Princess of Wales, we have to do whales. I kind of like, there's this cool mural on this restaurant in Tacoma that's right by the Point Defiance Zoo, and it's the Antique Sandwich Company. And then the side mural has basically kind of like Native American mermaids that have kind of the markings you often see on totems for whales, and I thought that was pretty cool. So maybe something like that. Hey, Jaden. I like the little cat in the box thing. I need to figure out how to do that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to put maybe orcas. So maybe do orca whales. That could be kind of cool for the Princess of Wales one. Tall tales. Maybe somebody spinning a tail. Or kind of like long. Or somebody who tells stories. Right. Have mercy. So this one, I think, this idea maybe of the sirens, mythology, and the fact that they were kind of luring sailors to their deaths. So I feel like this one could be kind of a darker one. Darker, luring sailors to death. In the Fishkotek, I think, like a disco. So dancing mermaids. I don't know how we dance in the water, but we could probably figure it out. Hey Jaden, did you figure out the whole like perspective thing? So mermaid hair, don't care. So clearly this is one where there's going to be lots of hair. So maybe the hair is like most of the picture. Is most of picture. So like maybe doing something where, so what I'm going to do now, so this is like a thumbnail. So, and usually when I do a thumbnail, I kind of just draw it in a little rectangle. This is like the edge of the paper, the canvas, or whatever I'm doing. And so I don't know, maybe it would have kind of, and so you'll notice, so this is just kind of quick, right? And this idea that maybe the hair is kind of filling up the space. Maybe, and I've seen this, so I'd have to kind of make sure I'm not copying other people, but maybe we'd have some fish kind of floating through here or peeking out, right? So this is, you know, super messy. It's very kind of, you know, not the best drawing per se, but it's more about kind of figuring out your ideas and putting your ideas down visually, and then also kind of working on composition. So I'm seeing, Jaden, that you said that you are still struggling with that, so maybe I'll take a break here from the mermaid thing and just kind of walk you through the perspective. That sound like a good plan? Oh, please. That's so not true, Jaden. She's a bunch of scribbles. I know you do better than scribbles. So I did try to tape a video of me doing the perspective thing, and then it took forever to upload, so I don't think it actually uploaded, but I did put 2 videos up in the playlist. So this is kind of the end result of what I had. So a couple key things with this, you guys. So if you're doing this 1-point perspective, after the fact I kind of realized I probably should have put the street in first. So when I'll demo it here in a second again. So that's what I'm going to suggest that you do, is kind of put in a road before you do anything else. And then the second step will be to go ahead and put in kind of the shapes of the tops of the buildings. So in 1-point perspective, it's kind of, you know, it's almost like a fisheye perspective because it kind of bows the buildings a little bit. But if you, there's actually photographs you can find, and I saved one, I'll have to put it up in the Google Classroom, that, you know, shows that perspective of the bird's eye kind of looking down. So let me kind of switch over here to a new piece of paper. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my road, and I think just for the sake of it being straightforward and clear, I'm going to go ahead and make it just a straight road. Actually, maybe I'll make it this way, because I think the videos that demo it kind of make it this way, and then that way it'll be easier to refer back to it. Okay, so, and I have one of, like what I have in the classroom, one of those transparent rulers, which are my favorite, because then I can see the previous line I drew, so it helps me kind of draw it. But if you use whatever ruler you have, if you don't have a ruler, if you've got a book or something else that has a flat long edge, that would be a good thing to use. So, okay, so I've got my little road in here. I'll go back and add details later. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in some shapes, and you can certainly freehand the shapes, or if you want to use the ruler and actually kind of put them in. I think for the sake of me doing this fairly quickly, it's going to take me a long time to measure it, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of just draw them in, which means they're not going to be 100% perfect, but it'll give you the idea anyway. So I'm just going to draw some squares and some rectangles and maybe some L shapes, and basically what the tops of buildings look like when, you know, we're looking at it from above. So maybe I've got an L shape here. I'm going to speed this up a little bit so it's in the view. You haven't quite. I'm still kind of working on how to make sure that I'm not actually working off camera, so to speak. Okay, so let's see here. Let's do another building here. And I don't know if you noticed, so I'm doing pretty sketchy lines, and really what happens is that when I do those sketchy lines, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of find the lines that are actually going to work, rather than just trying to really methodically do it all at once. So that's what has been successful for me. Okay, I think I'm just going to go ahead and start with the 3 buildings here. So the key with any kind of perspective is that you need to have a vanishing point. So when we're looking down, the vanishing point would be like, if you really, in actuality, it would be like the center of the earth. Now, obviously, the buildings stop where the ground is. So, you know, when you look at, let me pull my original drawing up here. So when you look at my original drawing here, so my vanishing point was right here. And I had the buildings go all the way down to it. But in actuality, we don't actually see the buildings going into the ground until they disappear in this kind of perspective. We might see that if we're looking at a 1-point horizon line, like if we were looking at a road that kind of goes and ends nowhere, so to speak. But in actuality, I would end up erasing this and having the edge of the building be, you know, meeting up with the edge of the road. And so that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can put the vanishing point at any point, any place. I'm going to kind of put it a little bit central because I think that'll make it easier. Now, I would say, even if you drew your shapes in kind of freehand here, I would go ahead until you get comfortable with this. I would use a ruler or something that's straight to help you draw your orthogonal lines. And that's kind of a fancy word, but your orthogonal lines are just the lines that kind of attach your object and move it down to where the vanishing point is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to only draw until I get to the edge of the road, and I'm going to stop. Okay, so I'm not actually drawing it all the way to the vanishing point. Now this one, it just happened to be that the vanishing point is directly under this rectangular shape, so it looks like a straight line. But when I do it at this corner here, you'll see that it's going to actually angle quite a bit. Right? So what this is, you know, if we were actually looking at it, and we can kind of, you know, this is the top of the building, and as the building gets closer and closer to the ground, it looks like it's getting smaller because it's receding from our eye, because as we look at things in the world, the further away they are, the smaller they are, the closer to us that they are, the bigger they are. And that's really actually what perspective is in a nutshell. It's this illusion of things being kind of larger and smaller based on, you know, where they are in space. Okay. So, looks like I lost a person there. Maybe it was my son. Hey Ben, are you still there? So I'm just going ahead and adding my orthogonal lines for my other buildings. And you'll notice that the angles will be a little bit different based on the placement of where the building is at in location or in relationship to the vanishing point. So this one, the sides kind of angle in pretty close in angle to each other. Okay, I'm going to do the one over here. And this one's going to have a really sharp angle because it's a little bit farther away from the vanishing point. So, little secret here, measuring stuff and figuring out perspective still confuses me at times, especially when we're dealing with measurements. So if you feel like you're struggling with this, you are in good company. But it's helpful to do it because then it helps you kind of draw realistically things that are in space. Okay, so I have my 3 buildings, and they should start to, do they kind of sort of look like buildings? Hopefully they do to you. So really the next step is just kind of adding the details. So one set of details I'm going to add in this building here, I'm going to go ahead and add windows, like as if it was like a high rise. So in this case, what you're going to do, assuming that they're all kind of equidistant from each other, you want to still kind of have it line up to the vanishing point if you're drawing a line. So I'm going to do that. So I'm kind of like picking about halfway in, and then I'll probably pick about another halfway in on either side. So, and then if you really want to create the illusion of it, you can figure out a light source. So assuming, like, you know, the sun's right above where the bird is looking down, all of your roof line space would be really, really light, and then the buildings would be casting shadows on each other, and so it would be shaded. So let's see here, if I can zoom in a little bit. Oh, I can zoom in a little bit. So I'm working specifically on this building right here. So I've done kind of the lines to do the windows this way. Now to do the windows, to finish up the windows, when I do the lines perpendicularly in the opposite direction, what I'm going to want to do is make sure that they are parallel, so they have the same distance between them with the edge of the building and the edge of the road. And if these were actually off kilter, like if the road was kind of at a tilt, I would have to kind of figure out in between those and kind of work my way from being parallel to the top to being parallel with the street. In this case, I planned it out so that I don't have to do that. So really all I need to do is make sure that I'm drawing a straight line as I'm going down. Now, because this building is getting smaller, as I go down, I'm going to need to make the lines closer together. And that's going to give the illusion that the windows are actually getting smaller too. These are rather big windows. It's an office building. Oops, my ruler kind of shifted there. So not, you know, obviously not perfect, but you should be able to kind of see this kind of illusion. And then if I want to go in, and actually I think I do, if I wanted to make this a little bit, you know, add some details, make it look more like a building, I could go ahead and do that. So maybe at this point I'm kind of drawing in the frames of the windows and just using what I drew in pencil as my guidelines. And, you know, maybe the roof here is also kind of an open space. So I'm just going to kind of draw another set of lines on the inside here. Okay. So, and if you feel like you're struggling with this, the few of you who are here, if you do this along with me, it might help. I mean, normally if we were in class, that's what we would do, is I would be demoing this for you, and then I'd be walking around and helping you. So obviously this is not exactly the same thing, but it's about as close as I can approximate it. So I'm going to zoom back out now. So maybe, you know, maybe there's a big old swimming pool here. I feel like if I lived in a big city where I lived in a high-rise, I would need some sort of open space. It would drive me a little bit crazy. Now, if we're doing something that's kind of, you know, inset or kind of concave, we also need to think about the vanishing point as it relates to that. And I'm going to switch over to my pencil here so I don't screw this up, or if I do screw this up, I don't have to totally throw away the drawing. And I'm just going to, in the corner there, kind of draw a little bit of a line how long I think it would be deep. I only need to do it on this side because with the vanishing point over here, I'm not necessarily going to see it. It would be, you know, covered up by the rest of the roof line. And that's just going to let me kind of create this illusion that this is a pool. And I might even add some line work. And maybe I'll add, you know, a little how we get out of the pool. Okay. maybe there's some plants here, little planters on the corner. So the key to doing the details is, you know, just like everything else that we've done in class, you want some things that are darker in value, some things that are lighter in value, and think about kind of the lighting source. I might actually go, now that I think about this, and I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a window texture here. So kind of a traditional shorthand for, you know, windows that are reflecting, or just putting a couple of lines in them. And what that's also going to do is it's going to change the overall value, the shade of it, and make it seem a little bit darker. So, and I might actually go in on the inside between the windows and do that too. And I'm being pretty sketchy with this, so I'm not being super precise at this point. Because one thing I've noticed with these kind of, whenever I sign these sorts of projects, is that sometimes people just really focus on the precision, which is, if that's where you're at, that's where you need to be at. But eventually you want this to kind of have some life to itself. And, you know, kind of being able to step away from using the ruler is going to make this look a little bit less like an architectural plan design and a little bit more like a piece of artwork with some heart to it. Oh, Caesar, I'm glad it's helping you. That's kind of the point. So let's kind of work a little bit more here. I kind of feel like, let's see, what else do we need to do here? Maybe I'll shift over to one of these other buildings, or maybe, you know, maybe there's some kind of green space by this building. Now, normally in a city there probably wouldn't be, but so in this case, let's see here. I'm gonna kind of, and of course, you know, the second I start just doing this all in pen, it's going to get all wonky, but I'm going to go ahead and draw my orthogonal line. And remember, I'm stopping at the street, not going in there. And then I'm going to stick some trees in here. And my trees are going to just, you know, at this point, you know, they're going to just be the tops of the trees, right? So you wouldn't want to draw a tree. Let me do it in pencil just so that you can kind of see. You know, you wouldn't want to draw a tree like this. Right? And the reason why is that, you know, we're supposed to be a bird looking down. So unless the tree has been cut down and it's actually laying on the ground, we're not going to see it this way. We're only going to see it from the very top. So the advantage, and one of the reasons why I made this the assignment, is that your details don't have to be, you don't have to know how to draw a tree. All you have to know how to do is draw, you know, a little scribble that kind of looks like a tree, you know? So, and you don't have to necessarily draw, like, you know, people in a building, you know, because they're going to be so small that it would just be their heads, right? You can just do little dots. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you. So my plan with this, I was a little concerned about kind of trying to teach you remotely something that is fairly complex. But what I really want to do with this, I thought it would be very cool to end the year creating our own comic. And so we're going to do some character design, and we're going to put that character in a room and in a landscape. And so in order to do that, we kind of need to know how to draw some of that and kind of create it in space. And so that's kind of, I felt like you needed to have that before we can do the character design. And I also want to show you in the character design how to like foreshorten a person, so we can have them, like, if it's a comic book character that's like punching or kicking or doing something else, like, what does that do if it looks like they're, you know, kicking towards the audience? How's that going to look? And all this perspective stuff is going to lead into that. Oh, I see Josh has joined us. Hey, Josh. Let's see here. Oh, Jaden, thank you. I don't know about how great it looks, but it does the job. I'm always amazed. So I don't know if you guys know, but my husband, he's not an architect, but he works in an architectural firm, and, you know, I sometimes see, you know, he does their marketing materials, and so I'll see the architectural design plans where, you know, the architects have kind of created this is what the building's going to look like, and it's so cool. All right, what do you think? Do you want me to continue on a little bit more with the perspective, or should I go back to doing mermaids? I'm gonna have a sip of water while while you guys think about that. I think maybe next time, well, I didn't give you guys a ton of notice that I was doing the live stream. I think maybe next time I'll let you know, like at the beginning of the week. And I think it'll probably be like on a Friday. I think Friday is kind of a good day for doing this kind of live stream. I'll just open it up to all of the classes and, you know, walk you through anything that maybe you're struggling with a little bit, or just draw for fun. Because I don't know about you, but I've been doing a lot of stuff on my end as far as teaching and trying to figure out how to do all the tech stuff and how to make sure that I'm contacting everybody and trying to touch bases with people that I haven't heard from. So I really haven't had a ton of time to do art. So this will be my way of doing that a little bit. So nobody is saying whether they want me to keep doing this or moving on to the mermaid stuff. I don't know. I think, let's see here. Ooh, you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to add a little bit more detail here. So I want to, and then I'll stop, because for me, doing this perspective stuff is kind of a means to an end, but really I'd like to really just draw kind of creatures and people, if we're going to be, you know, completely honest here. So I'm going to do kind of an optical illusion thing. So let me make sure I do this right. I better do it in pencil first. I don't know, that's not quite right. I think I got the angle a little bit off. I was trying to do kind of a domed roof here. That sort of works. Let's see, what kind of windows do we want on this one? I'm going to do pencil lines just like I did in this one. But maybe let's see if we can add some more interesting architectural details here. And you know, if this is kind of something that's really interesting you, I would go and just, if you do a Google search for, you know, architectural design or, you know, city plans or architectural drawings, you'll see kind of all the little tricks of the trade that architects learn for, like, how, you know, shorthand for how they do trees or shorthand for how they do people. And it's still very, very creative. They still are coming up with the concept of, you know, how they, you know, are putting together these buildings and all the engineering stuff that goes into it. But they're creating these kind of cool drawings to go along with it, following their own kind of preset design format. Okay, so I think I might just go ahead and maybe these buildings have kind of like a little balcony. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of the outside, and then I'm going to do the inside here. So I'm using the lines that I drew to do the outside. Okay. I don't know. I feel like we need some architectural details here. Maybe there's like posts. Time are we at? Okay. Just double checking the time here. Hopefully you guys have had a good week. I feel like it was a teensy bit less stressful than last week when we kind of went back for you know, things being graded and stuff. Had a lot of kind of kinks to work out. And if you haven't noticed it already, it looks like the superintendent sent out an email that talks a little bit about greeting and attendance and kind of what the actual policy is. So be good to look at it so you know your rights. I'll probably put a copy of it into our weekly plan. Okay, I'm going to kind of, you know what? I have no idea how to draw the tops of cars. I might have to look that one up. I assume they're just kind of like rectangular shaped with another rectangular shape on top. And they're going to be really pretty small. So that's probably kind of what they look like here. I'm going to pretend that's how we draw a car. It would be really, really teeny. This is probably more bust size if we really think about it. And somebody was being crazy when they put the lines down on the road, but whatever. You get the idea. Let's maybe have a crosswalk. What do you think? Now, the crosswalk is all going to be the same. Like, it's not going to narrow down because we're looking at it straight down. So it doesn't, like, recede into the distance and get smaller. So, you know, in terms of the learning target for this particular assignment, I just want to see that you can kind of figure out where the vanishing point is and kind of draw your line so it actually lines up with it, and get a feel for how we're creating space, that illusion of creating space, because that's kind of awesome, actually. You think about it, this is a flat piece of paper, but we can create this, you know, something that looks like it's three-dimensional, that we're looking down on it. I don't know. I think that's kind of part of the magic of this all. But then I'm kind of an art geek, so that's why I would think that. Okay, I'm just adding some lines to create texture. Just visual interest, right? Because one thing you want to do, you know, if we're looking to add some emphasis, do some design principles here. So having thinner and thicker lines creates emphasis. Having different kinds of pattern, and pattern itself is its own kind of emphasis here. I might actually darken up this roof line here. So, you know, if everything is all the same width or the same value, the viewer doesn't really know where to look. And so by kind of having, you know, thicker lines kind of will highlight that something is more important, or having areas that are dark can either frame something that's important or be the thing that is important itself. So kind of learning those little tricks, like once you remember, like, oh yeah, I need to kind of thicken the lines, or oh yeah, I really want this to stand out more, you've kind of really made a good leap into being an effective artist, where people are like, oh yeah, I totally get what they were trying to say or do or show. And, you know, for me, kind of making that connection with the audience is more important than the actual technical, like, you know, can you draw a car realistically? Or can you draw, draw something that evokes that or to somebody, or evokes the emotion. You're welcome, Jaden. I appreciate that you actually came and checked it out, so I wasn't talking to, like, nobody. Yeah, I don't know. So I know that you guys sometimes are hard on yourselves as far as your drawing, and I want you to remember that it's, you know, it's a skill, and the more you practice it, the more you'll get better at it. And, you know, some of the most powerful works of art I've ever seen aren't necessarily realistic, and they would be lesser as far as works of art by being realistic. So sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes, you know, we can be successful at conveying emotion or ideas and do it in our own way and have our own style with it, and that is 100% okay. And it's like anything else that, you know, we evolve as in we learn as we grow up. I mean, I actually looked at my sketchbooks from high school, and yeah, they were pretty awful. But, you know, they were awful enough that I don't think I'll probably ever show them to you. Oops. Looks like it's freezing on my screen. I don't know if it's freezing for you guys a little bit. But let's see here. I think, because this is supposed to be a plot of grass, I'm going to kind of be scribbly with my lines. So I don't think I have a ton else to say. If you've got questions, you can kind of put them up here. I think I might finish this building here, and then I might jump back into the mermaid stuff, draw a little bit of that, and then maybe wrap this up, because I still have to submit attendance and all that good stuff, so I just need to double check they don't have any last minute emails from people or other communications, so that I can be accurate with that. And you guys, I'm so glad. Thank you for saying that it's helpful and that you appreciate it. So, I don't know, I sometimes feel with this whole distance learning thing, it's like I miss that kind of connection of being able to see, oh yeah, you got it, or oh no, you need a little bit more help. So I want to be helpful, and I want you guys to enjoy creating. All right, I'm going back to my mermaids. Oops, I'm almost out of paper. So, and you know, I will go ahead, and this automatically saves as a recorded video, so if you need to go back and refer to it, you certainly can. Just FYI. So I'll probably post a link in the Google Classroom for the people who cannot be here right now. Okay, let's see here. So I'm thinking, yeah, like I'll have the one where there's lots of hair. Maybe it's octopus hair. You know, because I need an excuse to draw octopuses. Okay. Alright, I'm looking at some of these other prompts. So through the pearly gates, to me that reads angel mermaid. I don't know. Have a mix up. Or maybe even like a play on that. Like I wonder how I can make that dark. Because angels aren't necessarily my thing, but think, let's see here. I think I'll do this for just another minute or two, a few more minutes. I might talk just a teensy bit about my process, like where I would go next with this, and then wrap it up. I don't want the video to be too long, and it looks like there's only 2 of you guys left. So, let's see here. So, you know, you can see I'm kind of writing word associations, and for me, like, I feel like I'm kind of halfway a visual person as far as, you know, images, and halfway a visual person in terms of words. Like, words are important to me. They're kind of a key part of, you know, how I think, as well as the images also being a key part of how I think. So I usually do this kind of brainstorming. I'll do these kinds of thumbnails. And if you're taking any of my classes next year, like graphic design or EP art, you will learn all about thumbnailing, more so than you are now. But it's just, you know, it's something that, honestly, I was never taught, and I think it's something that developed as a result of kind of the growth of the graphic design industry, more so than maybe kind of the traditional artist route. And it just lets people kind of get those ideas down quickly. Like, especially if you're a graphic designer and you're working for a client, you're not going to spend hours and hours and hours kind of, you know, coming up with this beautiful thing only to have your client say, that's not the idea I was looking at. So having thumbnails and having kind of a rougher version of it kind of saves time, lets the client kind of get an idea of what you're thinking, and helps them kind of fine-tune what they were thinking. Let's see here. Tall Tales. That's an interesting one. Tall Tales almost kind of like reminds me of like the tall ships. In Tacoma, they usually have like a tall ship kind of celebration where we have these sailboats that look like they're old pirate ships come in. So I don't know if that might be kind of an association I want to do. But anyway, back to the thumbnailing process. So I never learned this when I took art classes in college. It's something that I've kind of learned as I've gone along, and you know, especially if you're working on a larger piece, kind of figuring out, blocking out composition, it helps you figure that out. And you know, when we did the still life stuff in drawing, we talked about the thirds, right? Kind of splitting it up into 2/3. Whoops, that's not even thirds at all. Look at that. I'm gonna add on to there. Pretend you didn't see that. My squares are not very square. Okay, scratch that. So, rule of thirds, right? So you do break it up into 3 sections in both directions. And then it's those kind of key points where I'm putting the X marks that really are where our eye is drawn. So you'll see that, you know, photographs that are off center, or artworks where the subject matter is not smack dab in the middle, they have more visual interest to them, and it works, you know, either vertically or horizontally. And this kind of rule of thirds ties into that golden ratio, and I'm not gonna, golden ratio is a math thing, but basically you end up with like the spiral, and the way that kind of this all works out, essentially you're ending up in a similar place to these. So there's some real beauty to using that golden ratio, and really kind of looking at that, like Leonardo da Vinci. A lot of the Renaissance painters use this, and it's just it's super cool. For my purposes, though, I have limited attention span and often limited time. So this rule of thirds, I feel like, does a similar thing, similar process, and so I will often kind of set that up. Using the rule of thirds, or kind of offsetting things a little bit. So when I kind of am thinking through these things, I might block out, okay, where do I want my subject to be? Like this one, you know, I have her kind of centrally located a little bit. So I would probably shift this if I wanted to make this a little bit stronger. Maybe she would need to kind of go in this direction a little bit more. Or maybe I'd need to have some other thing here as a focal point that kind of draws our eye in before we see her face. So those are all things that kind of brainstorming the process can help you figure out before you're like halfway into a painting and you realize that your main subject matter is not in a very interesting place. So let's see here. Seems a little fishy to me. Whoops, typo there. I don't know. Sherlock Holmes is kind of coming to mind. I feel like this needs to be a funny one. Maybe a fish with a Sherlock Holmes hat. Or maybe the fish is Watson and the mermaid is Sherlock Holmes. I don't know. Okay, so guys, I think I am going to wrap this up. I think I've spoken for about an hour, and I think that's probably about as long as we want the video to be, assuming others are going to come back and watch it maybe at some point. So I want to thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. Let me know if there's anything else that I can help you with, and I will see you virtually soon. Talk to you guys later. Bye.